Pierre. Delilah Pierre, followed by, I believe it's Jacob Muldean.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Delilah Pierre. I will not be giving my address. I am the president of the Tallahassee Community Action Committee, and I've been organizing in Tallahassee for about 4 years. And I want to talk about how we're going to end police brutality in Tallahassee. If we want to transform policing in our city, we need community control of the police. And the first step towards that is the Civilian Police Accountability Council. A Civilian Police Accountability Council is a democratically elected council of civilians not associated with law enforcement. This council would have the power to investigate complaints and allegations of police misconduct. It would have subpoena power, the authority to rewrite the Tallahassee Police Department's hiring practices, and the ability to approve policies and procedures, as well as fire officers found guilty of misconduct. They would also approve or disapprove TPD's yearly budget. They would be able to fight for less funding so that the Tallahassee Police Department stops being militarized and stops over-policing Black and brown communities. We understand the current limitations of making adjustments to the Tallahassee Police Department's budget and basing our people's budget on police funding. We know that due to House Bill 1, existing and upcoming state laws and federal laws, it is nearly impossible to defund the police in the state of Florida. We believe these laws need to be repealed, and we think for now that it's your job to create a resolution demanding that these laws be repealed. Although some of our demands are currently unachievable, there are immediate steps that you can take right now. The city of Tallahassee should put more effort into publicizing the Civilian Police Review Board meetings on social media. They can use the city of Tallahassee Instagram, Facebook, and any other social media accounts to spread word about them and the Tallahassee Police Department's Citizens Advisory Council. And you should allow for public comment at the Citizens Advisory Council. There's no reason that that shouldn't exist already. We need to increase funding to the Tallahassee Emergency Assessment Mobile Unit. There needs to be a review process with real, quantifiable data. The TEAMS program and Tallahassee Police Department's training to assist transgender people are positive steps forward, but we don't know anything about their effectiveness or the consistency of these programs because there's no system to review them. So you get to applaud yourself and clap yourselves on the back, but nobody knows what's actually happening. The city has done a subpar job at best at taking the demands of the Civilian Police Review Board seriously. Despite the CPRB submitting their annual report in February, it still hasn't even been reviewed by the City Commission, and it's September.
You're at 30 seconds.
It's a grave error and testament to the Civilian Police Review Board's use by the city as a buffer for real accountability for police brutality and negligence. We need to make policing in Tallahassee more democratic. We need to fight for an ordinance that allows us to elect a police chief and expand the powers of the Civilian Police Review Board. If we want to end gun violence, if we want to help people in Tallahassee, we need to have police officers who actually do their job instead of beating Black people like Jack West Kirkland, instead of attending homophobic conferences like the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, and working with war criminals like Eddie Gallagher, who's a known racist, homophobe, and transphobe. I also just want to say, and stay in support of those fighting for gun violence intervention. I think that they should be the people in charge of this project and work. I don't think y'all should be in charge at all. It is clear that you keep on giving more money to the police, but it is not changing the fact and condition in Black neighborhoods that they lose money, lose funding, and have higher levels of homicide every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Jacob Muldean, and followed by Dennis Houlihan.
Thanks for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jacob, and I won't be giving my address. Safe and affordable housing for all might be one of the most pressing issues in Tallahassee today. Although the city of Tallahassee has made claims that they are not a housing authority, the simple truth is that our city has the power to renovate units such as the unoccupied houses within the South Side and provide them to housing insecure people in our city, which has increased exponentially each year since the start of the pandemic. I think about 13% last time I checked. The city of Tallahassee also has the power to extend eviction moratoriums, help create a year-round direct rental assistance, assist in creating eviction diversion programs, help establish a local right to counsel program, and expand the notice period of eviction and rent hikes. People want and need affordable housing in Florida, as seen with massive campaigns in Tampa, Tallahassee, and in Orlando. The city has an obligation to protect and take care of Tallahassee civilians. I was a part of Tallahassee Community Action Committee and our canvassing efforts, and it seems like from what the people that we've talked to have said is that They only get to see you guys when you're wanting re-election. Some of these people haven't seen any city employees whatsoever are having increasing problems with paying rent, paying utilities, stuff like this, and they're not getting any resources from the city. And it's unfortunate to act as if I'm a service worker or as if I'm supposed to have that authority. They're asking me what I'm supposed to do, and I'm like, well, here's a city commissioner's number, but I don't know exactly what that's going to do. The city could also take action to ease the weight of utility debt, like we've heard. We could create a renters fund for emergency crisis, increase funding to existing legal programs, such as the Legal Services of North Florida, which is a nonprofit. We also need more homeless shelters, not sending the police to raid them. People were removed from their homes and given few options for relocation for the Orange Avenue apartments on the Mahan. It took a lawsuit and dedicated protests for a few residents' secure housing support. Only a few commissioners even bothered to do the work of trying to help the residents, and they couldn't even rely on city resources. Tallahassee has few homeless shelters and places for people to rehabilitate themselves. And instead of helping these people out of crippling poverty and danger of homelessness, the city attacks these people and uses their existence as a mean to justify even more money for policing, which already takes up 1/3 of our city budget. So instead of defunding our city, defunding our sidewalks, and defunding our communities, we need to help each other, and we need affordable housing, and we need a people's budget now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next is Dennis Houlihan, followed by Ben Grant.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Dennis Houlihan, and I won't be giving my address. As we know, the police budget takes up more than 1/3 of our city budget. Despite having the largest share of the city budget, it is clear police are not the most helpful to the needs of Tallahassee residents. I believe we should divert funds from the police in other areas of need. We've kind of talked about the limitations of that. But for now, I'm going to focus on healthcare. Everyone here needs to see a doctor or physician for one reason or another. Healthcare is too important to be overshadowed, but that is exactly what's happening. According to the Leon County Community Health Assessment 2017 and 2021, 1 in 5 people living in Leon County live below the federal poverty line. We have the 9th highest rate of poverty compared to all of Florida counties, and respondents had difficulty getting medical services in the past year cited the following reasons. 1, no insurance coverage, lack of money and transportation, as well as long wait times and distance to facilities. To combat this, we need more funding for healthcare, youth services, and senior services. We shouldn't have to worry about entering debt or dishing out large sums of money to stay healthy. Not having insurance shouldn't prevent me or anyone from getting adequate, timely care for medical issues regardless of the severity. Further, because accessibility and mental health is also tied into our physical health, the city should be absolutely pouring more funding into local nonprofits. For example, Ability First, which is a nonprofit that aids a variety of people with disabilities. A nonprofit made by people with disabilities for people with disabilities, because it's important that the people who disseminate aid and service for the community actually are a part of that community and know the issues. At the crux of this is really just showing empathy towards our people's needs, traumas, and desires, and that requires the city to utilize as many resources as possible towards programs that prioritize community care rather than policing. Understand that these problems are policy choices that you make. I hope you make the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Ben Grant, followed by Mason.
Great. Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Ben Grant. I will not be repeating my address. I'm here to speak on behalf of Tallahassee Community Action Committee about free and accessible public services. We need to be a city that makes bold and innovative approaches to providing free and accessible public services. The ongoing crises in Flint, Michigan and Jackson, Mississippi illustrate the importance of quality public utilities and the trauma that occurs when cities force residents to survive without these basic public services. It must be the city of Tallahassee's goal to be a community where everyone, regardless of their ability to pay, has access to clean drinking water, reliable electricity, and internet. Furthermore, it must be the city's objective to never cut off a resident's power or water. We need a city budget that ensures Tallahassee residents have access to utilities and restores public trust. We should invest in infrastructure for our local children walking to school, not giant corporations like Amazon. Everyone should have access to high-speed internet as a public service. We need it to be a city that does not leave residents of our local food deserts to the whims of corporations and the rich, but instead takes the initiative and opens a quality yet low-cost grocery store on the south side. The current city budget has a record low funding for sidewalk improvement and infrastructure in Tallahassee. Although Tallahassee was willing to throw $27 million to renovate FSU's stadium, despite massive public discontent, claiming it would be a source for sustainable jobs, there are dozens of streets in Tallahassee's poorest areas that don't have sidewalks on both sides of the road. It is disgusting to see the city staff positions funding dramatically increase while public infrastructure crumbles. The city commissioners voted against the utility moratorium in Tallahassee despite the overwhelming need for relief due to a pandemic and a recession. Other ideas we have for improvements to public services include creating clothing stores on the south side of the city which provide new clothing and shoes free of charge to residents who need them, developing a rooftop solar panel program to give solar panels to residents free of charge, improving public transportation by expanding routes, expanding hours of operations, and qualifications for free or reduced fare to include veterans, people on Medicaid, and people who qualify for SNAP. We can also promote bicycling by improving bicycle safety along Lake Bradford, Jackson Bluff, and the many high-traffic intersections on Tennessee Street. In its work establishing bicycle safety, the city of Tallahassee should also prioritize dedicated bike lanes and implement programs with the Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Affairs Department to provide free U-locks to bicyclists who need them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Mason, followed by Abdullah Skir.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mason. I am a Tallahassee resident. Residents of Tallahassee are finding it more and more difficult to provide food for themselves and their families. A number of working class people in the city are inching closer and nearly starving, while a certain group of people are given large amounts of money to purchase military equipment. We need to feed the Tallahassee community. This is an attainable goal. There are numerous ways to end hunger in Tallahassee, and we must start by reallocating the city budget. Taking a portion from the enormous amount of funding that law enforcement in Tallahassee has been given and using portions to give to the working class and the people of the city. Providing additional funding to mutual aid groups can help provide resources, such as food for food distributions and other drives for basic resources. Tallahassee citizens are finding it difficult to survive in the capital of the state and demand basic necessities be met. My name is Mason. I support the People's Budget in Tallahassee, Florida. Money needs to be taken away from the police budget and given to sectors of social services in Tallahassee. We need real affordable housing in Tallahassee. We also need the Civilian Police Review Board to have more autonomy. And we need to eventually get a Civilian Police Accountability Council in our city. The city has done a subpar job at taking the demands of the Civilian Police Review Board seriously. Despite the Civilian Police Review Board submitting their annual report in February, it still hasn't been reviewed by the City Commission. This is a grave error and a testament to the Civilian Police Review Board's use by the city as a buffer for real accountability for police brutality and negligence. City budget workshops should happen on the weekends or weeknights at a time that is accessible to working class people, and not just the two held in the month of September. Every city budget workshop and public meeting should be held at 6 p.m. as a public hearing so many working class people can attend as possible. This current city budget defunds local sidewalks and street pavings while maintaining a minimum wage below $15 an hour requested by the City Commission over 3 years ago. It expands the pay of high-level executives while ignoring the basic city maintenance. Again, we need a people's budget in Tallahassee that actually addresses the demands of working-class people. If we want to end corruption and mismanagement of funds in Tallahassee, we need to take power away from the city manager in crafting the budget and give it back to the people where it belongs.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Abdullah Skir. I believe I may have mispronounced that first name if I remember from the last time.
Thank you for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
Totally okay. My name is Abdullah Skir. I am at 1951 North Meridian. and I'm speaking as a concerned resident of the city. I support the speakers who have come before me asking for a people's budget in Tallahassee. We need to divest from the police and invest in our communities, and that comes in the form of funding social services in Tallahassee, having real, actual, affordable housing in Tallahassee. We need a civilian police review board that has more autonomy, and we need a civilian police accountability council in our city. Several speakers have already mentioned the fact that the Civilian Police Review Board submitted their annual report in February, and that still hasn't been reviewed by the City Commission. That's not only acceptable, but it really speaks volumes as to how much the City Commission really values that work that they're doing. And one of the commissioners brought to the public's attention the fact that this current draft of the city budget will defund local sidewalk and street pavings. That'll disproportionately impact elderly people, working poor, who don't have access to a reliable transportation because we refuse to invest in public transit, and people with disabilities, whether they use a walker, a wheelchair, a scooter, who have mobility issues, and it'll impact their ability to freely move about their community. And I really, really want you to understand the weight of that, so I will say it again. This budget will directly impact the ability of people with disabilities, elderly people, and the working poor to move freely about their own communities. And if you support that, I hope you can come up with something to tell the little voice in your head when you sit down on your bed that you did a good job, because I know I would not be able to. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Next is Carter Ho.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering, based on the comment from the last speaker, if the city manager could speak to that. Do we have a date for when a review, the 6-month review, an update on the noise ordinance will come before us?
Sure, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner, I believe it's on the futures list for October. This would be the 6th month for the ordinance, and I think the discussion was after about 6 months,
Okay.
we'd bring it back with some progress update.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Porter.
And then I was wondering, since, you know, we had another speaker who was talking about the TPD training, and Eddie Gallagher, and I was wondering if since we have the chief here, if you could address any of those concerns.
Chief Revel, joining us again.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll start off by saying John 8:32 says, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And we have answered this, and I hope this can be the last time we've answered this. We did not contract with anyone. We did not pay for that facility. Our team led our training at that facility. Plain and simple. We are nationally accredited. Excuse me, I get a little bit passionate about this, so just bear with me, please. We are nationally accredited because of our training. We are a flagship agency because of our training and our policies. And I assure you, the Tallahassee Police Department will not and will never be Uvalde. If we have an incident where we need to go through a door to save children, you better rest assured we're going through that door. And my men and women will be trained to go through that door because you expect us to go through that door. You demand that we go through that door. And we've seen what happens when we don't go through that door. So to say that we have a warrior mentality or a culture of combat, may I approach Mr. Cook, please?
Yeah.
I'll give him just a second to pass that out to each of you. You want to know about the culture of the Tallahassee Police Department? You want to know what our men and women do at the Tallahassee Police Department? Then look at that list. There are over 75 things on that list that the men and women of the Tallahassee Police Department do each and every day in our community to build trust, to build hope, to build community, to build transparency. We stand every single day with our community. But whether we are a warrior or we are a guardian, depends on what your intent is. If your intent is to harm me or to harm some of our citizens, then you better believe I'm a warrior, and I will defend our community. And the men and women of the Tallahassee Police Department will defend our community. If you want us to be a guardian, then you're behind us, and we are your guardian, because we're going to stand in the gap between whoever would hurt our community and our citizens. So we take both roles seriously, and we train for both roles seriously because you demand that we train for that. That is the issue at hand. We have specialty teams. Specialty teams have been in existence since the 80s, and they have a very specific purpose to deal with very specific issues. And their training is unlike any other officer training because they are specialized. And they are trained because of those most violent situations that we know have happened here in our own community. And that team responds time and time again and acts professionally. They just went out on an 11-hour call out with a barricaded gentleman, negotiated with that gentleman for over 10 hours because that's what they're trained to do, because our training dictates that. Our training makes sure that if we have to go into a home or we have to go into a school, when that is forced on us, my men and women are trained to handle that situation effectively and with the best training known to mankind in this country. Because I will not go to another officer's funeral thinking I could have done more. I will not go to another officer's funeral thinking that I bowed to pressure to not train them to the standard they need to be trained to. So forgive me for my passion, but please understand, I make no excuse for us training on our policies and our lesson plan. Because somebody was there that did something that they shouldn't have done, we don't have any connection to that gentleman, all right? Because he was observing our training, he's a Navy SEAL. He's a team leader. He has some of the best training in the world. Did he provide input? He probably did. There were other Navy SEALs there as well. They are the best trained people in the world. So I'm sure if they're watching our team train, they're going to have input into what that training could be. How do you enter this corner? How do you turn that corner? Where do you need to look? What do you need to be observing when you walk into that room? Because again, if your child is in that classroom, you're going to want my officer to have that training. If your wife, your spouse, your husband has been taken hostage, you're going to want my team to have that training. But if you want to know the culture, I'll go back to this and I'll end with this. If you want to know the culture of the Tallahassee Police Department, then you look at that list, because that's what our men and women do every day in our community.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Porter, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's it for me.
On point, Mr. Mayor.
On point, Commissioner Matlow.
I have questions, Chief. I appreciate your passion, but we need you to understand that when people see Tallahassee Police Department training with a war criminal, and whether he was invited or you contracted him or not, him celebrating it on social media, that makes members of our community afraid. And what I'm concerned with is you don't realize that.
I do realize that.
You're so defensive and so on the attack against people who have a genuine concern.
I'm not attacking anyone, Commissioner. I'm simply stating the facts.
Let Commissioner finish his thoughts real quick, and then we'll get you.
My point is this. When we see things that our community are concerned about, we can't just say, so what? I respect the training you do. I respect that you could have the best trained police department in the nation, and that doesn't require a war criminal to be posting videos online with our police department. And so when these things happen, I would wish and hope that we could take a step back and say, how did we get here? Was this training environment offered for free? Did we know this gentleman was going to be present? When he was present, let's distance ourselves and not say, yes, this is a Navy SEAL that needs to be training our people, the same gentleman who's holding up a dead man's head in photographs at war. It's absurd, it's ludicrous, and I'm not diminishing any of the great work that you do. I'm not diminishing any of your officers, but I want to impress upon all of us in our city that if we don't take the way we're perceived, if we don't say, no, we don't want to see our police department trained by a war criminal, we're going to lose a whole lot of our community that's watching us. And that's not an attack on you. I just hope you'll take those words and consider what I'm saying as we approach very delicate situations in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
May I respond? What I would say to you, Commissioner, is the same thing. I would ask that you would step back and ask questions before you jump to judgment, because I received the email you sent that said, how dare us? You didn't ask any questions. I don't have any ability to dictate what Mr. Gallagher may or may not post. All right? We did not contract with him. He took a picture with our team. I've advised my team that picture should not have happened. Okay? They know that. It'll never happen again, I assure you, because I get it. I do understand. But there are times where we all have to step back. We all need to understand that we should ask questions. We should get answers. All right? I'm always available for those questions. All right? Always available for those questions.
Thank you.
And Chief,
Thanks, Chief.
on point, Chief, you just said that he led exercises. There's videos posted on social media of him leading exercises.
There is not.
So the
That's
question I'm asking is,
that's a misstatement. That is not true. He follows a team. What's on the video is him following our team into a room. That's what's on the video. That's what you're referring to, is it not?
and that's as an observer, or that's as an official role? I'm just trying to get to the understanding of what
I'm saying
happened.
you're jumping to an assumption that he's leading that training, where I could make just as clear an assumption that he is following our team in to watch what they are doing as they enter that room and to provide input, which is what I said in the original release that I put out, that I'm sure they provided input.
And that's the problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Let me first of all say thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
What we have done is given this guy more notoriety than he deserved.
Absolutely.
I had no idea who he was,
I didn't either.
and I still don't. I mean,
Or I had to look him up.
we've helped his business because we have put his name out there
Right.
more than it would have otherwise. So thank you all for the work that you do. I do not want us to become a Uvalde. That would be unforgivable.
Absolutely.
Unforgivable. We got children in Texas going to the school where their brothers and sisters or friends were killed. We had an incident right here in Tallahassee at the hot yoga studio. I want you to have your training, but we need to make sure that our community understands the patrol officer is not the one getting that kind of training.
Correct.
The patrol officer is out there to protect and to serve. The patrol officer is one that's going to stop me when I'm speeding. The patrol officer is going to be the one, if I have a flat tire, they're going to try to stop and help me. Right. That is not militarization there. Different compartments, different departments. So thank you all for what it is that you do. And when I call y'all, I want y'all to come. Don't have a second guess about whether you should come or not, because I appreciate what you do. I have family members who are in law enforcement. And when I have questions that I don't understand, I ask them first, because I know they're going to tell me the truth. I call you, Chief, when I have questions, because no matter when it is, because I know you're going to tell me the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you all for what it is that you do. That's not what I wanted to say in my time of sharing, but it's just that we've just got to be very careful. Free speech is good, but if it creates situations that we then got to evolve from, that's time spent that we didn't have to spend. So we've just given this guy, stock when I didn't even know who he was. I want him to go back to not being known by us. Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, ma'am.
I wanted to share, speak on what Ms. Collins spoke on, Ms. Sharika Collins. I have been working